Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to my Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Thank you. Welcome to the Party Pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 83, and this is also the third edition of the Javier Milei Show. And I have Ignacio Tesón, who is a finance writer living in Buenos Aires, and we're going to talk about the financial situation in Argentina and the rise of Javier Milei, who is the front runner to be the next president of the country. How are you doing, Ignacio?
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me, and it will be a pleasure to talk with you about Javier or anything that has to do with, finance, Bitcoin, or whatever.
Sure. Yeah. So what is the current? Yeah, we're also going to talk about Bitcoin because there's a lot of Bitcoin usage in Argentina. The Latin American Bitcoin Conference is down there in November. For the second year in a row, it's going to be in Buenos Aires. So if you want to fly a long way down to Buenos Aires,
I would have to go, and I guess we will have to meet.
Yeah, maybe it's tempting just because of what's going on with Milei. But so tell me, what is the financial situation right now in Argentina? I mean, just for now and maybe for the last 10 years, if we can take a look at this.
Well, Argentina is a very special country in that sense. We had like 9 defaults in all our history as a country.
Yeah.
9 defaults. I don't really know if there's a country with more defaults than us. And that's also why, despite we are part of the G20, for example, we have our bonds have the same risk as countries like, Zimbabwe or Zambia, countries in Africa. Argentina is a very special country in economic terms.
Yeah, 9 defaults. When was the last default?
2020. And we had to restructure our debt with the IMF. We had to restructure our debt with private bondholders. And the other times were in the 90s and in the 80s. And well, of course, much in the 19th century. I mean, it is a long story of defaults. At first with the British people, and then with the more modern international system after the war with Malvinas, Falklands. So Argentina has a long story of financial problems based on its fiscal deficit. And that's why also we need to print more money every time, because we have a chronic fiscal deficit.
Yes, the Islas Malvinas is what the Argentines called the Falkland Islands.
Yeah, exactly.
That was and that one person described that as 2 bald men fighting over a comb. But anyway, I'm looking at a little chart here, and I can go back to 2006. $1 would have gotten you 2.93 pesos.
Yeah.
2011, you would have gotten 4.14 pesos. So that's not.
Yeah, that sounds like a normal country, even though you have some devaluation or depreciation. But that sounds like a normal country. The problem is beyond 2011.
Yes. 2015, you could have gotten June 5th, 2015, you could have got 9.03.
The problem is that is not true, because we had exchange controls. We had exchange controls in the last 13 years. In the last 13 years, in 9 of them, we had exchange controls. So in 2011, even though you see that number, that's not true, because you weren't able to effectively go and purchase the dollars. It was forbidden. So you have an official exchange rate, and you have a true exchange rate, and that's also why we use stable coins or Bitcoin to settle transactions.
Yeah. So, I mean, getting back to this chart here, I mean, but then we see like 2018, 20.17. Later, it goes up to March 22nd, 2019, 40.86.
Wow, yeah, that's when they took the the elevator instead of the stairs.
Yeah, December 11th, 2020, 82.15.
Yes,
27th,
that's
2022.
destruction of our currency.
Yeah, August 12th, 2022, 134.54. And now today, according to Google, it's 349.97 Argentine pesos for $1. I mean,
Yeah,
that is not
that's
good.
the official exchange rate.
That's the official exchange rate. Okay,
Yes,
so that's what you'll get from the government. But if you go out on the street,
you must have at this very moment 700 pesos. It's
okay.
it's twice.
So, and is that illegal, or how do you police those kinds of things?
Wow. They don't enforce it unless they are too desperate. When there are moments in which the government is too desperate because the blue rate, the unofficial election rate is going up, is rising. Then only in those moments they enforce the regulations and might go to certain places, which of course because everybody knows they are there, which are called cuevas, these are little spaces where anybody can trade. It's a black market.
Yeah, so the black market kind of rules, and but I don't. Yeah, that's very interesting. So yeah, so only the internet doesn't really tell you what the story is what you're telling me.
No. It's a really Argentinian experience, unfortunately.
And even by way of comparison, I just decided let's take a look at versus the Mexican peso. And in 2004, you could get it was 0.26 Argentine pesos for a Mexican peso. That's went up to 20.84 Argentine pesos for a Mexican peso. So
Yeah.
that's when you're losing that badly against Mexico, you're definitely in bad shape.
It's difficult to explain, how this affects on a normal basis, on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But it's only in the long run that you really understand how this destruction of the currency works, because you cannot save, you cannot you cannot keep money in your pockets. So most people simply aren't able to simply purchase a motorcycle, a vehicle, I don't know, let alone a house. So it's the destruction of the currency helps consumerism, because everybody wants to trade their pesos for anything.
Yes.
But really hurts the investment, the investment pillar of the economy, which in the long run destroys the economy itself.
Yeah, well, it turns you into a cash now society. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't buy a car. You can't finance buying a car. You can't mortgage a house.
Exactly. We don't have a mortgage, for example.
Yeah, you buy a car, you got to give them all the money now.
Yeah. Well, Argentina is a very special place. Again, think about this. In Argentina, there are no mortgages, and you have to pay your house, your home, in one payment, in one installment. And however, you can pay, I don't know, a mixer, your daily purchases in many installments.
Yes.
That's kind of strange. There's credit, but only for the little stuff.
Yeah.
But no mortgages at all.
As a result, just wondering, what percentage of the population is a homeowner, and what percentage of the population is a tenant?
Well, despite there are no mortgages, Argentina used to be a wealthy country,
Yeah.
and in the 90s, even in the 90s, and in the start of the 20th century. So that base is not that bad. More or less 65% of families are homeowners, or 70%, which is a lot. But of course, it's declining every year.
And of course, maybe that's also just due to inheritance or something like that. You know,
Yeah, of course. Argentina, Argentina is a country that is underpopulated. We only have 45 million inhabitants,
yes,
and countries with 45 million inhabitants, like Spain, are like 1/20 of what we are in terms of territory.
yes, indeed. Yeah, you have. Yeah, it's a large country. Of course, you also a large portion of the country is not really very easy to inhabit either.
Well, yeah, the Patagonia, for example, but it is true that the density, the population is not well distributed. Half of the country is concentrated in the Buenos Aires area. Um, like, if you've been in London, you will know that it is not only the city of London; it is also, the cities, the towns that surround London, and that's what we have, a greater Buenos Aires.
Yeah, that's what's very interesting about quite a few of the South American countries is the capital is this one really dominant city.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the same way in Peru with Lima.
yeah,
Lima is about 1/3 of the population of Peru. I don't know. I mean, Buenos Aires is the area of Buenos Aires is about half the population.
yeah. Greater Buenos Aires is about half the population. It's a lot.
I don't know. I don't know how Santiago compares to overall Chile, but it's probably somewhat the same.
Yeah, I guess it's the same. In our case, the basic explanation was the intentions of certain governments to create an industrial belt around Buenos Aires, which of course failed, because, well, that declining trend in industries is not only about the US. It's not only about the Rust Belt. It's not only about, I don't know, Michigan or Ohio. It is also about the industries of the Western countries in general, which of course have been in decline. The industrial sector has been in decline because of China's policies.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting too. Argentina has the same, believe it or not, the same population density about as Finland and Norway.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say. We are a very underpopulated country.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't. It gets pretty cold down in way down south, doesn't it? You ever go down there? Or,
In Patagonia?
yeah, Patagonia, like to Calafate, I believe it is, or someplace like that.
Oh yeah, those are beautiful places, and in the winter, temperatures might go up, as low as -5 Celsius approximately.
Yeah. So yeah. So one thing there too, though, is there a lot of also being Buenos Aires, though it has a lot of port there, because I mean it started out as a port like a lot of cities do, and
Yeah, it is port. It is a major port in that is also the port of other countries. For example, Paraguay hasn't a clear border with the sea, with the ocean, with the Atlantic Ocean. So they use our rivers to export their soybeans, for example.
Oh yes, of course, yeah. Soybeans, interesting. Yes. So what particular events here were there going on with the currency? Because it looks like to me it's really, if you look at these graphs, it's really shot up just from the beginning of last year, or even the beginning of this year.
Yeah, well, it is difficult to just mention one single episode, but what people must have in mind is that there's a chronic fiscal deficit in Argentina that forces the government, the fiscal deficit forces the government to print more money to cover that fiscal deficit. And because the type of expenses that the government has is not flexible. Why do I say that it's not flexible? Well, maybe because these are social programs that basically maintain a net, a standard of living to a lot of people, which might be very humble, might be poor. That forces the government to keep funding these programs. So it is a major problem. The government doesn't really want to lower the expenses because most of the government expenses are for social programs such as helping poor people or the public system of pensions. We don't have private pensions here in Argentina. We have a public system of pensions.
Yeah, Social Security. Is it also a lot of what you might call government make-work projects, like government construction jobs or other government jobs?
That's actually a declining portion of the government expenses because the adjustment at this very moment, Argentina only has social programs in which to put money in public investment. Now constructions are not more than 2% of the GDP or 3% at the most at this moment. Most of the expenses of the government are social welfare in any form, in any type of form. Just like what I said, be it social programs or the public pension system, which comprises more than 55% of the total government expenditures.
Yeah. Is that on?
It sounds like a failed state, right? It sounds like a failed state.
Yeah. Does that
also, it is.
Does that also include things like maybe health care for old people or stuff like that?
Believe it or not, no. We do have a public system of healthcare, which it's unfortunately pretty bad at this moment. But no, the things I mentioned don't include those expenditures. I didn't include it in social welfare, but when you take into account all of the all of the programs that might have to do with social security, we are talking about more than 95% or 92% of total government expenditures.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So, how many people what percentage of the population benefits from these programs? Directly.
Good question. I would say that directly, 60%, 65%. Indirectly, basically everyone. Because you might use some type of social security or welfare at any point. Like everybody, for example, gets their services, their public services, with a lower value that they should receive it. We are all subsidized. People are subsidized. So that's also another type of government expenditure, and want it or not, you are receiving the subsidy all the time. So it's difficult to say.
Yeah. I mean, it gets hard to tell because It's just like in America, you realize that every dollar bill at one point was probably in the hands of a drug dealer. It creates a situation where all of the money is dirty. It's and it's passed through lots of hands. So let's okay. So we went over the situation in Argentina again. When did you first start noticing Javier Milei?
Well, that's something. This is something good to say. I'm an early adopter. Where with a couple of friends, we invited him for a conference in 2017 in a basement. Imagine in a basement here in Buenos Aires, and we were no more than 80 people. The audience was no more than 80 people. So I would say that I can say I'm an early adopter, and fortunately, I've been, following him for a long time by now.
Ayn Rand and the Nathaniel Branden Institute were also in the basement of the Empire State Building too. So, yes. Where did it go from there?
Javier basically started as an he was invited to all networks, all mainstream media networks, because it brought them very good ratings because of his authentic style. So they kept inviting him, and at some point he went viral. He was liked by grown-ups and young people, specifically more young people. His popularity with young people is basically enormous. Like if the election was only about people below, let's say, 25 years old, he would win with I don't know, maybe more than 55 or 60% of the votes.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And it's curious because in the US it's the other way around. Young people tend to be more socialist.
I don't really know what they believe here, but it was always sounds like Milei did Milei always have a following with younger voters or not?
Yes. His base is basically younger voters.
What do you think that Milei is doing that other candidates haven't done?
Basically being truly authentic. He inspires people to tell the truth, to be aggressive towards the system. That's something that was not allowed here in Argentina. You see other candidates and their tones are like, well, we might change this, and everybody will be better after that. But Milei, he's aggressive. He goes against the status quo.
Yeah, and so many times that doesn't work. Why is that working for him now?
Well, I think because when you hit the same the same spot with the same hammer and all the time for many years, people start noticing that. I guess he was at the right time saying the right things, and he always told the same things. So it's a hammer hitting the same spot for a lot of time.
Yeah,
and at some point people were convinced about him.
So this just happens to be one of those rare times that the voters actually want an honest politician?
Yes, and in that regard, I would say that he is more or less similar to Donald Trump. The guy that is authentic, that is aggressive, that is he's not a politician and not a natural politician. In that regard, he's more like Trump. Javier Milei likes Trump, by the way. But he's not he doesn't share all his world views.
Yeah. Well, Milei actually is a trained actually has some economic knowledge. I don't think Trump has any. Maybe it's I wonder if you might say he's more comparable, say, to Maria Corina Machado in Venezuela.
Well, they're friends, by the way. They're friends.
Yeah, that's a very good sign. Yeah, he's friends with Maria Corina Machado. Keep that in mind, and trust me, people. Maria is a hero. She puts her life on the line. She's not allowed to leave Venezuela, but someday Maria will be Venezuela's savior. Yes.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so. I've been with people who worked for Maria. She's not a friend of mine.
That's good to know. Yeah.
But of course, I know her party, Vente Venezuela, right?
Yeah, Vente Venezuela. Yes. Yeah. And the Argentine party is, what do they call that now? The Alliance or something?
Milei's what?
Yeah, Malay's party, yes.
Libertad Avanza, which would be like Liberty Advances or yes. Go on Liberty.
Libertad, yes, Libertad Avanza. That's, that is, I got to tell you, that's a good name. That's forward thinking. Yes, La Libertad Avanza.
Yes, it's a freedom advances or whatever.
Advances. That's, this is something right now that I think is, you just brought up something that I think is a very good thing. You're looking at liberty as something in the future. Liberty advances. I want to pull my hair out every time I hear an American libertarian or somebody libertarian leaning use the term classical liberal.
Okay, that's something from the 20th century, right?
Because yes, classical means, it always means something that's old and irrelevant.
Okay.
I mean, it's something in the past. It's something that's like, I was popular, but I'm not popular anymore.
All right.
There's a lot of American libertarians fall into this category, fall into this trap though of looking in the past to the good old days, and I think that's hurting them. You have liberty advances. Liberty advances. La libertad avanza. Yeah. It's a much more positive way of looking at things. I think.
Yeah, it's forward thinking.
Yeah, it's forward thinking. It's like it's like liberty is the future. It's not the past, and you have to sell things as and this is what the socialists have done. They've always said, "Well, socialism is the future. It's inevitable," and no, it's not. But it still hasn't died, too. I mean, have you been? How long have you been writing about finance?
Personally, like 7 years or 6.
So so you weren't. So I don't know. I guess I'm thinking of what were you doing, or were you around when the Berlin Wall fell and
I wasn't really here in the world. I'm 28 years old, so
I tell all of you, I'm 52. None of us thought we would still be fighting socialists now. We did. In fact, we didn't think it would ever. We certainly didn't think it would be more popular, especially after watching the Berlin Wall come down and all this stuff. We thought, well, and I think it goes back to what they say in the 48 Laws of Power. You have to completely obliterate your enemy, or your enemy will come back.
Well, I guess it's true. You got to put salt on the ground to keep anything from living again.
And that's what brings me to another more important question. What is the general state of academia and the more professional intellectuals in your country? And
the same as in the U.S.
Is it that way all over South America, or?
In my opinion, this is a growing problem. Academia has a crony system. So in Argentina specifically, academia or part of the academia lives directly from the state. So the problem is that the funding comes from the state, so they must support those policies and support anything that the government does. It just doesn't make any sense. We have something which that is called CONICET, which is basically a government-funded system in which you get in and you investigate stuff, which might be literally what I'm going to say. You might investigate, Disney movies and get funded for doing so. And you might ask, why does or how does this help, society as a whole? And of course, it doesn't. I mean, there's no possible gain from investigating Disney movies, but a good portion of the CONICET actually it carries out this type of investigations, which are useless. And of course, almost everybody, like 80%, I don't know, of CONICET's grant holders, of course, support government policies.
Yeah. How do you spell that? Condescent, you said?
CONICET, CONICET, CONICET.
CONICET. Okay.
CONICET, yes. I don't really think you have something like that in your country, but it is true that people that come from universities actually support socialism in some kind of way.
Yes. CONICET is the main agency that fosters science in CONICET.gov.gov.ar. That is National Scientific and Technical Research Council of.
Yeah, the problem is that lots of the science is useless, and again, a good portion of those grant holders of CONICET conduct useless investigations. I would say that nothing truly, innovative has come out from CONICET.
Yeah, what's very interesting about America is that it still happened in spite of the fact that a lot of the colleges are private, and the universities are still private organizations. They're not government at all. I don't know if there's something that inevitably attracts these kinds to these professions or what, but that seems to be the interesting factor here. So you've watched Milei, and you said he just got more and more on TV, and they like to bring him on TV. Is that just because he gets good ratings or gets viewership?
Yeah, Javier Milei brings good ratings. People want to listen to him, and in 2017, they basically invited him because of the good ratings, and because he used to be more aggressive toward the system. He's now, moderated himself for electoral purposes. But back then, he was very, very aggressive.
So the media never tried to bury him or anything like that? I mean, they didn't try to make him...
All the time. Think about this. Major networks, just like in the US, receive money from political parties and from the government. So they must tell horrible things about Javier. But at some point, the problem is that people stop believing because it's continuous. It's always something bad, So at some point, you are vaccinating them against a continuous, ambitious attacks. So an economist would say that this is a ley de rendimientos decrecientes, diminishing returns law. So at some point, it just doesn't work anymore.
Well, and sometimes it ends up even working in the reverse. I've often heard, it's said in America, well, if the media hates this guy this much, he must have some pretty good ideas.
I don't really think that it works that way in Argentina just yet. But at some point, it might work that way.
That was something that attracted me to Ayn Rand. It was like, well, if all these college literature experts and literature professors hate Ayn Rand so much, she's got to be pretty good.
Okay, her reasoning must be really good, and because she came from the USSR, she must know what she's talking about, right?
Yeah, well, especially writing We the Living, and when she wrote We the Living in 1936, it's like nobody wanted to hear any of that. It's like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, yeah, she does. Anyway, yeah. So who is Have you met Milei, or do you know Milei, or how well do you know Milei?
Well, we met personally more than once,
Yeah.
but because his popularity has grown so much,
Yeah.
of course he won't remember me at this point. But my friends, I mean, who are in Libertad Avanza, I have got a lot of friends in Libertad Avanza, and in a kind of way, I'm also part of Libertad Avanza because I'm a political activist, in Twitter X now,
Yes.
and so in a kind of way, I am part of Libertad Avanza. I guess that if he becomes president, I don't know, somebody might call me because there's very few people in Libertad Avanza. So if we have actually or effectively have to govern. I don't know. I might be part of that administration. I don't really know.
You might get a government job. There are some politicians out there who do have that keen superhuman ability that they do actually remember everybody. But he might surprise you. But it's interesting.
Well, I hope so.
Who is Milei? Who has influenced Milei? Who does he read? Who does he listen to? Who?
Well, first he listens to her sister. He has a sister, and she's her main. She's the person that Milei uses to lean on when he has to be in private, and that's something normal. It's his sister, right?
Yeah.
I guess he had a very bad relationship with his parents.
Oh.
Unfortunately, but I think that's something that is better now. But mainly he listens to his sister, and well, he has many friends.
Yeah.
I can mention a couple of them, but it wouldn't make any sense. But I can tell you that in terms of influence or political thinking influence, I would say that the guys that he read the most are Murray Rothbard, Mises, and there's a guy here called Alberto Venegas Lynch, which is the major libertarian figure in Argentina before Milei, and of course he listens to him a lot.
Could you spell that for us, please? Albertero or
Alberto Venegas Lynch.
Alberto Venegas Lynch?
Yes, Alberto Venegas Lynch. And he, for example, he invited Mises to a conference in the 80s.
Ludwig von Mises was dead in 1973, I believe.
Yeah, that year, in the 70s. Yeah, Mises, okay, yeah. Alberto invited Mises in the 70s.
Okay, yeah. Mises, I believe, was dead in 73. Now, Mrs. von Mises lived about 20 years later, but yeah, Mises died in 73. Yeah, Alberto Venegas Lynch. Yeah, author of 16 books. Professor of economics at University of Buenos Aires, yeah. Member of the Mount Pelerin Society, Advisory Council on Institute of Economic Affairs, which is a free market think tank in London, and he's also connected to Cato. So yeah,
he's a more well-known libertarian figure. He was before Milei.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't know who this guy. Of course, a last name with like Lynch. That's definitely not Spanish, but yeah.
Well, in Argentina, I would say that a good portion of our country doesn't have a Spanish surname. Like my surname is Tesón, which is Spanish, but I don't know. Most of the people might have surnames like Polish surnames.
Yeah, he's also got a profile on the Mises Institute website. Milei only speaks Spanish.
No, he speaks English too.
Oh, he does speak some English. Okay, I haven't.
Yeah.
Is there anything? Does he have any English material out there? Or is he mostly speaking Spanish? I know there's some.
I don't really know. I don't really know. If he has any material in English, it might be something academic because it has to be, prior to 2015, and he didn't really need to, speak another language.
Yes, and he knows what he has to go after too. If he's going in, he's got to speak Spanish to his audience. So yes, Lynch also has a profile at the Francisco Marroquin University.
Yeah, it's a Spanish university, that one.
Yeah, that's like the free market university. It's in Guatemala.
Oh,
yeah. There's a he's been around. Look like that's good to know. Yeah, I should have heard of that guy. Yeah, Mises and Rothbard. He's never. What does Milei have to say about issues that aren't economics? I mean, does he think marijuana should be legal? How does he feel about divorce laws or feminism?
Well, it depends. A couple of he switched some sides in those terms. I would say that in 2017 or so, he was he wanted to legalize every drug, and I guess for electoral purposes he's not saying that now, because it's not very popular to say that, especially with the lower with poor people, which are at least in our country, which are the consumers.
Yeah, when you realize that poor people really only care about one thing when they vote, is they care about how do I keep food on the table, and how do I keep my house payments going.
Yeah,
they don't really care about much of anything else.
Exactly, and he was in favor of legalizing everything, but that has changed, at least in the last 2 or 3 years. And there's another factor here, which is the reality factor, and the United States, won't ever let any country in this continent to ever legalize drugs, because it might help, the entrance of more drugs in the U.S.
Well, as we often say, that the war on drugs hasn't stopped anything, and it's created this black market where there's a lot of incentives. So
at this very moment, the U.S. has disclosed, their security objectives in the continent, in the southern cone, and the most important factor here is drugs. Because there's a lot of production, not only in Argentina, but let's say Colombia, Paraguay, Bolivia, Peru.
Yes.
And that pours into the U.S.
Yeah. What does he say about things like, is he in favor of easy divorce, difficult divorce, or abortion?
No. He's in favor of divorce itself. Like you can choose anything you want. He has said many times that he doesn't really think that the state should be part of that, arrangement. So he thinks that marriage should be, some type of ritualistic concept rather than a public arrangement. I mean, something that the state has to say something about it. He has said many times that he believes it's more of a religious ceremony.
True, yeah, but I mean, just, it's interesting that he's not never been married, but it sounds like that maybe the one thing that does often happen though is when you come from not a good family, sometimes the siblings really do bond and become best friends, and they're always looking out for each other. But I guess I should maybe be more direct. How does he feel about things like feminism? Does he think that?
Oh, okay.
Our culture is completely out of control here, and I think South America is still somewhat sane regarding stuff like that.
Well, of course, Milei is not in favor of feminism. He sees it as a form of collectivism.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say he fights it, aggressively, because it's not a discussion that it's being held at this very moment, at least aggressively here in Argentina. But of course, he's not in favor of feminism. He has been many times being attacked because of his stances about women, or about the way he sees feminism, things like abortion. He's not in favor of abortion, but it's not one of his main. It's not one of his main topics. So he's been attacked a lot of times, and based on feminist arguments, like a lot of times.
Yeah,
it's one of the most common attacks, I would say.
Well, one thing it sounds like Milei knows how to do is he knows how to read the room. I mean, he knows how to talk about what's on people's minds, and you have to talk about what's on people's minds. And if everybody's worried about, making their house payments and putting food on the table, you have to talk about those things.
Yeah, he does. And one thing that is really great about Javier is that his base, his political base is young, and it's also it's made of a lot of poor people too. The poor provinces have voted for him the most in proportional terms. So I would say that he really has to say something about them.
Yes. Are the poor provinces also the more rural provinces where they're
Yes.
Maybe you have a lot of small farmers, or
yes. I wouldn't say that his base are farmers themselves, but yes.
I suppose it's probably more expensive to live in Buenos Aires than it is anywhere else, right? At least
much more. Sure, much more. Yeah.
Are any of the other towns, like say Cordoba or places like that, as expensive? Or
no. Cordoba is a big city. It might be more expensive than other places, but of course, no place is more expensive than Buenos Aires.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, of course. And I suppose there's probably some neighborhood in Buenos Aires that I definitely do not want to go into.
Sure. The south of the city is not as good as the north, but to be fair, it's a safe city compared to other Latin American cities.
Yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, so yeah, I don't know if there are any other significant cities in besides Buenos Aires. Sounded like maybe
Rosario. Rosario is the second. Córdoba. It's Buenos Aires, Córdoba, Rosario.
Rosario. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for touristic terms, Mendoza, Calafate, Ushuaia, Tierra del Fuego. We are a very cheap country right now. Very, very cheap. A dinner might cost you, I know, $12, and you will get, the best of the best, or $15.
Yeah, the second most populated province is Santa Fe.
Yeah, Rosario is there.
Yeah, looks like it might be definitely worth visiting. I suppose most of the population is also up in the northern part of the country as opposed to the southern part. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think Elsie's doing well? What about? I mean, for example, I see a lot of pictures of him wearing a black leather jacket. Do you think that's helping him? I mean, maybe that's making him a little cool. I mean, Milei definitely has a look, and
yeah, he has style.
This is a visual game. It's.
Yeah, he definitely has his style, and when he was more of a television, a TV guy, people that would invite him back in 2018 or 2019, you can search for pictures in which he has a leather jacket, but also he had like a car that was like Batman's.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, just if you can search it and put a picture for the people, that would be great. He has a famous photo in which he has the leather jacket and with the car behind, with Batman's car behind, which was of course a car that he rented for a lot of time.
Oh yeah, I think the car can definitely make a difference. He always appearing in that, it's the Batmobile or something like that. That's just so, yeah. And if you
I would try to look for it. I would try to take to.
Yeah, for example, I mean, people don't think much about this, but it's been over 100 years since America has had a president with facial hair. You go back into the 1800s, we've got a lot of presidents who had beards or presidents who had mustaches, and none of them have mustaches anymore. So, yeah, it's a, and a lot of these guys, it's going to be interesting to see if the movie or the TV stars start copying him.
People politicians are really taking notes and have started copying him in terms of style, or in terms of the things that he's saying. Of course, that's a natural process.
Yeah, if there's a hairdo or whatever, yeah,
the hair, the curly hair, the.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've got a guy who sounds like he's this economics professor who are often these guys are just completely boring, but it sounds like he also knows how to be a showman and really put on a show for people, and it's resonated with people.
Yeah, there's also people know him because of his economic stances but there are a couple of aspects that make Milei unique to people. Like there's a very famous interview in which he said he's a professor of tantric sex. Tantric sex.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And I guess that's something that it's new for the American public, but virtually everybody knows this in Argentina. He's a professor of tantric sex, and he said he had or he has what we call apodo, which is basically a special name. I don't really know how to say that in English. He has a unique name that women tend to tell him, which is bad cow, because it doesn't give you milk.
Yeah, that's wild. I didn't know about the tantric sex. That's one thing. Does he have is he pretty much single? Does he have any long-term relationships?
Yeah, he's now in a relationship. He's now in a relationship with a famous actress. A famous actress that creates imitations of other people. Yeah. She's called Fatima Florez.
Fatima Florez, yeah.
Fatima Florez, yes.
Oh yeah, Fatima Florez, yeah. That can help, yeah. And she's about Fatima Florez. Is that with a Z?
Fatima, Fatimaflorez.
Yeah, well, sometimes I've seen it spelled with an S. Oh yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah, it doesn't say anything on Wikipedia about her being connected to Milei though. So, yeah, but is there a? Oh, it sounds like to me she is like she's a celebrity impersonator though. It sounds like too.
Yeah, she's an actress and an imitator.
Yeah, that's definitely a lot. That's definitely a talent if you can do it, especially because it also requires really good makeup use.
Yeah,
you really got to know makeup, but I'll tell you what, if you do the makeup right, you can really do it well. Yeah. List of people she's impersonated: Gabriella Sabatini, that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, I remember Gabrielle in her prime. She was hot.
Well, she was pretty famous in the U.S. You know, just not only because she won the U.S. Open, but she was pretty famous at the time.
She was a doubles partner with Steffi Graf. Yeah, but it looks like she's done
Yeah.
Lady Gaga, done Celia Cruz, done Madonna. Yeah, done Britney Spears, done Shakira. Yeah, it looks like she's definitely hit a lot of different countries too. So yeah, that's good work. Yeah, that's that I bet Milei has learned something about promotion from her though. Yeah.
He's a very special guy. He's a very special guy. And this is my opinion. And I think he has a couple of literally autistic bases. You know, his head works a little bit like the one of an autistic person, and that makes him very special for the good, of course.
Yes. Yeah. There's definitely something here. I really, it's really nice to see this happening. I mean, how do you think it's going to impact the country? I mean, do you think we're going to see, Milei being 52 now or 53?
Well, I'm very optimist.
But we may have an army of younger Mileis that are 20 and 30 years younger now, and I think that could be very positive for your country.
Yes, of course. Again, the vast majority of his base is basically young people, and there are lots of high school guys that really follow him. That's gonna be great for the future. If I had to tell you a number, I would say he will have to go for a rundown with another of the candidates. We have a ballotage system here, so if you are part of one of the most voted forces, then you go for a rundown in November, and yes. I guess he will have to win that rundown.
Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah, but he's already the top vote getter. Now he just has to get more votes than the other guys. But he's in a good position. And what can you tell us about Victoria Villarreal?
Okay. She's the
vice presidential candidate.
Yeah, she's the vice presidential candidate. She's very, she's like our Margaret Thatcher. She's very, strict. She's very tough. She's nothing like Milei. It's a very good contrast. Milei is very open. He might be, more aggressive. He punches, while Victoria, provides the formula more like a woman, old woman style of leadership. I don't know if I'm being clear.
Well, older women can be really great leaders. They're experienced and they recognize who's sincere and who's fake. And I mean, some of my best supervisors were older women at work. They know who works and they know who doesn't. They know how to recognize the BS artists and they know how to recognize the genuine people. It's so let's say Milei doesn't come out, the winner in this. What happens after that? I mean, he's still in the Congress of Deputies, right? Is that what they call it?
Yes, he at least he has 2 more years in the Chamber of Deputies.
Yes. So,
and even if he doesn't win, he will have lots of legislators.
Yeah, he'll have lots of legislators, and he'll have and they could actually make a difference. I mean, this is
of course.
We're not going to have 434. We're not going to have votes that are 434 to 1. We're going to have a block that can actually accomplish something.
Yes, we are talking about a block that can block other blocks.
Yeah, and one of those things, it's like an activist told me down here. She said, it's a lot easier to prevent bad stuff than it is to advance good stuff.
Yeah.
It often turns out to be very negative. What is the system like there? Is it a parliamentary system where like?
No, it's a presidential system, but the Congress it's quite important because, of course, you have to legislate or delegislate, erase laws. So I would say that in the case of Argentina, we have two main. I mean, we have laws that nobody understands or nobody knows. We have an inflation of laws because we have lots of rules and very few are truly enforced. So I guess we need to start from ground zero, and that's something that I guess Libertad Avanza already knows.
Yeah. So this could really have it sounds like we definitely have something happening here that where do you think this could go wrong, if it can go wrong?
Yeah, things can go wrong because in South America and Latin America in general, the rules of the game, the political game, are not the same as in the US. The US, I guess, it's more civilized, and attacks have more in common with with the ones that you see in Europe rather than the ones that you see in Latin America in general. So things can go wrong. Yes. Why? Because there's a whole group of people that will lose a lot of privileges or will lose a lot of money if Milei becomes president and actually carries out his master plan. So I would say that violence is possible. It can go wrong. I'm not saying that he's in danger. Like I don't know like the Bolsonaro episode, he was stabbed and basically he had to be hospitalized. I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you that violence in the streets might take place. That can go wrong. That's one of the things that can go wrong.
Yeah. I mean, well, they also had that assassination in Ecuador.
Yeah, that recent assassination attempt, more than one.
Yeah.
In Ecuador.
Yeah, it's a lot of things. Does Milei travel pretty much?
I guess he uses.
Does he wear bulletproof vests? Is he going?
Yes, he uses a bulletproof vest below that leather jacket.
Yeah. Maybe that's what the leather jacket is for, because the leather jacket's a good way to cover it up. You might not necessarily be able to put a suit on something like that.
Well, at least as far as I know, he uses a bulletproof vest below that, behind the leather jacket.
You can get away with that more in Latin America too. I mean, in America, it's almost always you're wearing a suit and a tie or something like that. But in Latin America, you can get, you can still see a guy running for the highest offices. They might be wearing jeans or in a flannel shirt or something like that, or just a sweater. It's definitely not as uptight about that. They can, and I think sometimes because I also think because it's so much poor down there, the people want to look. They don't want to look like they're too much.
Yeah.
They don't want to flaunt it, so to speak. They want to look like they fit right in.
Well, Argentina in that sense is more aspirational. And you can actually use like the leather jacket, and people will find it funny or will find it cool. They won't think that you are. What are you trying to flaunt on me? That's something very good about our country.
Yeah. There's looks like there's some. I just saw some tweet from Gloria Alvarez about Milei. I don't know if she's saying
Gloria Alvarez?
Yeah, from Guatemala.
Yeah, well, they were very good friends, but I guess they are now at odds.
Oh God. Something tells me this is not ideological.
Is it? I don't really know. What does she say? She says that
I don't know. I'm reading a tweet. I can't, and one thing I'm going to do too. anytime I talk about Milei on here, I'm not going to have anybody who's not speaking Spanish, because if you don't speak Spanish, you can't know what's going on there. I know a little, but I need you because you speak Spanish. You know what's going on. My last two people, they both are Spanish speakers. They know what's going on. But if you don't speak Spanish, you can't know what's going on. So I'm not going to make any judgments, but I did see something from her, and I'll have to see what it says later. So, but yeah, I've learned this a lot, because this is the biggest news in the history of the libertarian movement worldwide, and because it's the most success anybody's ever had. Period.
Yeah,
by a wide margin.
By far, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is Argentina's Ron Paul moment. I said, no, it's not. Ron Paul didn't get 7 million votes in a country that's a lot larger than Argentina.
Okay, but I must say that we can rescue, Ron Paul. He was truly,
I'm just saying there was never that level. Who does Milei have any does Milei have any political heroes that he really looks up to? I mean, I don't know.
Difficult to say. I know he likes Ron Paul. I know he has Rand Paul.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah.
And the only people that have actually been close to him in the last years have been, these right-wing leaders, the only ones that have opened him the door. Other leaders, like center leaders or leftist leaders, have already closed the door on him. And well, I would say he doesn't have any historical heroes, except for I guess one or two presidents of Argentina that he always tried to rescue from the past.
Yeah.
These were Carlos Menem and Julio Argentino Roca, which were the presidencies of Argentina, where Argentina basically flourished. So he always tries to rescue those guys, but I wouldn't say that he has heroes in the present. And the only friends that he has in political terms are these right-wing guys, like say Santiago Abascal in Spain, Giorgia Meloni in Italia, among others.
Yeah. Julio Argentino Roca, he ended the Argentine civil wars. Who else was another one of those presidents you mentioned?
Carlos Menem. He was very popular.
Oh, Carlos Menem, yes. Oh, looks like
even in the U.S., he was invited by President Clinton, if I recall correctly, to give a speech in the on the lower chamber of the U.S.
Yeah, he just died about a year and a half ago. Yeah.
He liberalized all sectors in our economy in the 90s.
Yeah, and some of these politicians who implement these free market reforms, why don't they stick? We're watching Chile right now.
Yeah,
trying to undo some of the good things that Pinochet did.
Yeah,
I suppose we can probably put a lot of the blame on the college professors, but probably other things that play into this as well.
Yeah, I would say the same. Especially that thing about professors. This guy is a professor. The current president of Chile, he's a professor, an academic professor from I don't remember which university, but yes. They are trying to undo things, and the reason behind it, I guess, in Argentina, Carlos Menem stayed for 10 years, which is a very long time. So he was successful. The problem is that, this is my opinion, this is a Latin American opinion, a vision of Latin America from Latin America.
Yeah.
I would say that people here tend to buy tend to buy different concepts across time.
Yeah.
When they have more money, they tend to be more socialist. When they have less money, they tend to be more conservative or free market. And it's not because they think about it. It's because the system itself nudges or pushes them to like a pendulum. So I would say it's not an ideological problem. I would say it's a matter of the elites of our countries. They are very crony, and they will say anything at any point just to stay in power or to change things so as to stay in power. Which means that they can say one thing in one decade and another thing in the following one. And we in Argentina have lots of examples about it. Like Cristina Kirchner was a fierce defender of Carlos Menem, which was the guy that implemented all these liberal, all these free market policies. And then in the next decade, in the start of the century, she implemented all the socialist, all the socialist measures and created the current state of things. So I would say that it is a matter of power in the case of South America. People will buy anything. People will say anything, especially the elites will say anything to stay in power. Doesn't really mean it's not ideological.
Yeah, true. It seems like a cycle, though. You have a free market, get lots of wealth and prosperity, then you implement this welfare state. Starts to go socialist. Maybe somebody like Pinochet takes over. Liberal brings back the free market. Everybody, but then brings back democracy. Everybody gets rich again, and then you elect the socialists again, and it just wash, rinse, repeat.
Yes, it's a pendulum. It's a pendulum, and that's why I guess we have. That's why you are the most important country in the world, because there's a consensus in the elites. We can't steal. We are going to steal from you. We are going to take your taxes, but at least we have some consensus on what is wrong and what is right. So, in terms of there's an implicit code in politicians which is a better code than the Latin American elites have. That's the implicit code is better in the US than it is here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But it's definitely much more of a crony system. I mean, this is not legal advice, but it sounds like Argentina is one of those countries where you can probably get away with whatever you want to get away with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put out the right bribes.
Absolutely. This is a country in which you can do anything if you have enough money. Yeah. And I mean, hire a hitman. Yeah. Or maybe there's a reason behind. There's a reason behind Argentina had, the most important terrorist attack before 9/11, and that's because. Sorry.
What attack was that?
AMIA attack, Embassy of Israel attack.
Oh yes, the Embassy of Israel in Argentina.
That was the largest terrorist attack before 9/11 in this continent.
Oh wow, 29 dead in a suicide bombing. Yeah, we just don't get that much coverage here in America. I can't believe. Yeah, this was huge. 29 civilians were killed, 242 injuries.
There were two attacks, AMIA and Embassy of Israel, 1 year apart. We have I guess the third or fourth largest Jewish community here in Argentina. and all of the places that are sponsored in a way by the Jewish community have like pillars, pillars to protect the premises, because this happened. So there, if an explosive car will attack the place, it will explode, outside. That we have every Jewish place has those pillars.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Buenos Aires. Yeah, sounds like it's a. Yeah, Argentina. I've heard it has a lot of European descent. One person
Well, of course, half of the population has Spanish or Italian roots, and that's not. And I'm not counting, German, Polish, English, British in general, Irish, East European roots. I would say that 90% of the country has at least one ancestor from Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, as things get bad, I mean, sometimes some of those European countries are making it easy for people to go back. Are they possibly going back? Of course.
Well, many Argentinians are going back to Europe because of the economic situation.
Going to other South American countries, like maybe they're going over to Uruguay or someplace like that, or.
No, Argentinians tend to go to Europe. They don't really care or like to go to Uruguay, just for vacations.
Okay.
For example, in my case, I have Italian roots and Spanish roots, and I am able to hold an Italian passport.
Yeah, I've wondered. England has the Commonwealth of Nations with most of its former colonies. I wonder why Spain hasn't set something up like that, like a Commonwealth, a Spanish Commonwealth of Nations. But
well, they had something like that in this
all the other Spanish-speaking countries,
Yeah, they had something like that in the 16th century, but
colonies, though,
yeah. The Spain also experienced a sharp decline in terms of cultural influence in the last, I would say, 2 centuries.
Well, one thing I've realized is that a lot of the English colonies were modeled on, the English law, Magna Carta,
Anglo-Saxon laws,
and property rights, a certain amount of capitalism, whereas Spain was still pretty much feudal, and a lot of the Spanish colonies ended up being somewhat feudal. And
there is
legacies of that feudalism.
There is this view that it is religion that is the driver behind progress, like Protestants against Catholics.
Yes.
It is a view that says that Protestantism tends to value more work, and there's this famous book which I can't remember right now, the Protestant Method.
The Protestant method. Yeah.
Sorry.
Protestant Method. I've never heard of that.
No, it's that's not the name. I'm trying to remember the name. It's like the Protestant ideology or something like that. I can't remember. I think it's from Max Weber. That compares and tends to compare with Catholics. And
Max Weber, the Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism.
Exactly, that one. The Protestant ethics and the spirit of capitalism. Well, I think that might explain some things about those differences. I don't really buy that's all of there is,
Yeah.
But I guess it's a portion.
I don't. Is there still? I mean, Argentina still is mostly Catholic, right?
Yeah, of course, like 50%.
Only 50%.
At this point, yes. In the past, it was much more. In the past, it was much more. I would say that effectively right now 50%, and very few of them are actually people that go to mass.
Oh wow. So it's kind of been secularized a lot more than
absolutely. Argentina is a secular country by definition.
Well, it depends on the level of culture. I went to Peru, and one thing I noticed about Peru,
that's a very conservative country.
One thing I noticed about Peru, for example, lots of businesses closed on Sunday.
Yeah,
that's something you'll notice.
The Catholic roots.
Yeah. The Sabbath we close on Sunday. One thing that's very famous here in America, the chicken place Chick-fil-A, they close on Sunday. It's just, and they'll probably still be closing on Sunday 100 years from now, which is fine. What's interesting is I think that's also one reason why some people like working there is because they know they got Sundays off. But I was wondering about that too, though. And of course, the Pope is from the country, and he's a communist. So,
I would say he's not a communist; he's a Peronist.
A Peronist, yes. Okay. What do you think of the differences there? Peron really wasn't because that group really did claim to be anti-communist, but they really fell into the same economics anyway.
Who?
The fascists like Peron and
Peron. Okay.
They were still socialists, though.
Well, Peron always said that they had nothing to do with communism and they had nothing to do with capitalism. It's the third position, like.
Yes, the third way.
The third way, yeah. In this case, I would say that Peronism, it's a Christian movement.
Yeah.
It's a Christian movement that fosters by force solidarity between people. By force. And by force, I mean by force.
Yeah, it seems to me that a lot of times I think one reason maybe why Mussolini and Hitler hated the communists was because they had more traditional ideas about family. The Nazis thought that a woman should still be, having babies and baking the cakes and cooking the dinner, whereas the communists all wanted the woman out in the factories.
Well, I don't really know a lot about history in the USSR about women specifically, but what I can tell you is that Peronism is what it has to be at any given point in time, which means, again, Peron, as you have said, might be considered in the eyes of today as a fascist. Then again, who? Yeah. Carlos Menem, the guy that implemented all the free market reforms, he was a Peronist. And Christina Kirchner, which implemented all the socialist policies that we have right now.
Yeah.
She's a Peronist. So I would say that Peronism, it is what it has to be at any given point in time.
So in some respects, it really is kind of this belief in a third way, and you just have some unstable system where.
Yeah, it's the search for, I would say that Peronism is the search for power. It's a method.
Yeah.
It's a search for power. Using, the tactics that might be needed at any given point in time based on what the population is requesting. If the population is requesting free markets, Peronism will tend to go that way. If people are requesting, say, more socialism, Peronism will go that way. If people are requesting more, a little bit more of a tough approach on insecurity, Peronism will go that way. It's a method. I wouldn't say it's a corpus. It's not a corpus, an ideological corpus. It's more like a method.
Yeah. So it sounds like to me, Peronism is just trying to give the voters whatever they want in order to stay in power.
Exactly, and in that sense, it is, and in that very sense, it is the very true nature of populism.
Yes, it is. So maybe Milei is using Peronist methods to achieve.
Absolutely. You are getting it right. You are the first American, first American that is getting this. You are the very first one, believe me.
Thank you very much. You have to, I think there's so many people see everything in politics as a dichotomy. And dichotomies do not rule the world. There are trichotomies. There are possibly quadcotomies and quintcotomies.
Of course, the human mind tends to think in dichotomies, but there is never one.
There's red, yellow, and blue, the primary colors. That's three colors. There's three dimensions. There's, left, right, up, down, back, forth. It's there's a lot of different. You have to see those things. Yes. So, we could perhaps have and this is something too, is if you can take on the vibes and the attitudes, one thing you realize is, all of this persuasion is, so much of it is nonverbal.
Yeah, of course. It is visual. It is aesthetic.
The visual. It's hearing. It's your vibe. It's your tone. Are you talking fast? Are you talking really fast? Are you talking really slow?
Yeah.
Are you speaking in a high-pitched voice, or are you speaking in a low-pitched voice? The jacket, the hair.
Do you know the person that really mastered that? It's Donald Trump. The guy really mastered the tone, the looks. He really uses all the aesthetic things and all the visual aspects to.
So did Barack Obama to a certain extent.
Yeah, of course.
Ronald Reagan, who had a career as an actor.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me, Milei's got. I bet he's got a lot of coaching from Fatima on this. And boy, I'll tell you what.
It might have. Yeah, it might have.
I'll tell you what. If you're a guy and you can find a good woman who can coach you on stuff like this, you're gonna.
Yeah.
Ludwig von Mises' wife was also a prominent Austrian actress.
Wow.
She was gorgeous. It's so wild too to think about it.
We have a pattern here.
Granted, I never knew Ludwig von Mises, but this, what seems to be this completely nerdy economist suddenly gets with this hot actress in Austria. And one thing else too is, even when she was, like old, she still looked. She was one of those 70+ women who still looked great. It was. And I just thought, you wonder sometimes too, though, if sometimes you learn that charisma and, maybe she's, and sometimes the first, the partner can be an asset or a liability. Seems like to me, there's definitely something going on here. That's, how could we make something like Milei happen in America?
Oh, good question. And as I told in the space with Jeff, the first thing is, there's no first thing. That's the main problem. There's no like step-by-step guide to create a libertarian movement that is successful. That's not true.
Yeah.
I would say there are a couple of components that must be there in order for this to happen. But I wouldn't say that there is a step-by-step guide. For example, there must be some kind of figure. Ideas are not enough. You must have a figure that synthesizes or someone that is able to synthesize more than one thesis on him or her. So ideas are not enough. You need one figure. Secondly, this is my opinion, you need to have a populist type of message, because you are fighting the electoral war. You're not fighting anymore the ideas war. In fact, I'm gonna go further. Ideas Even though we might like them, they don't matter. People like people. Not people don't really like ideas, and it's not enough. We might like ideas, but people in general, they don't like ideas. They like people. Third, you must have some type of media outlet that serves to communicate the ideas behind the person.
Yes.
And fourth, you must have money to carry out this Quixotean adventure. So at least those four things must be in place. And fifth, you must have a failed state, because if you don't have a failed state, your ideas won't or your person simply won't penetrate people.
Yeah. So you're telling me that it has to get really bad for a Milei to have a chance.
Yeah.
So,
and the same applies to the US.
Yeah,
if you're only in the end.
Yeah, maybe it's more likely that Milei might not inspire Americans, but he could inspire a lot of younger Mileis all over the Spanish speaking world.
Yeah, it is probable. It is probable. I wouldn't say. I think that in the case of the United States, you must start local, because the people's behavior in the US is different.
Well, you pointed out, I think Americans are still too comfortable. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I would say in the case of America, start local. Yeah. Always start local.
Start local. Well, also because you have a different political environment just depending on this. I mean, a country of 2 million people is going to be different from a country of 50 million people.
Sure.
It just the representatives in the legislature, they represent less people. There's a lot of different factors involved. But I think this has been a really great conversation. I think we're going to wrap up. You have anything else you want to tell us, or any websites we could go to find out more about you?
Well, about me, there's not much to tell. I'm just a witness of the beautiful things that happen in life.
This is beautiful. I got to say, I'm thinking a lot more about visiting Argentina just after all this, and
sure. And there's a lot of things to learn here, because in political terms, we are a very advanced country. Like every single step is thought. Every single step is like strategic.
Yeah.
And this is a very good place to learn deep politics. Argentina is a place for that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, well, okay. Well, I'm Chris Baker. Please like the video, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, follow the channel, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter at Fountainhead FM, and go buy my novel, Escape from the Village. Thank you, Ignacio. I'm Chris Baker, and we are out.